What's up, everybody? This is Grey here with another Sunday shift report. The crap has hit the fan. I hope everybody's doing well this Sunday afternoon. I guess depending on where the video finds you, in case you're catching it on the replay or whatnot, or if you're here in the premiere. And if you are, I truly appreciate that. Anyways, folks, man, we got some stuff to go over today. And, I'm not going to be able to catch everything, man. There's just so much developing, and it's hard to, grab everything and put it in, and try to compact it in about 30 or 40 minutes. But we're going to go over some stuff. We got all kinds of issues going on with China. And, the reason I bring up China is regardless of how anybody looks at the situation, whatever happens in China truly affects us here in the U.S., being that we get so much of our products from China. And some pretty interesting videos that have been leaked out of there. Some of them I couldn't find. But, yeah, man, we're going to talk about heating oil and formula shortages and all kinds of stuff. And everybody thinks that the Charlie Victor has disappeared. Sorry, I feel like my lips are a bit chapped. I'm sitting here looking at myself in the camera wondering what's going on, Gray. Anyways, folks, but we got some stuff. First, we're gonna focus in on here on the Texas border and go over an article that I have for you, and some inflation things, some shortages. Like I said, it just doesn't get any better. Every Sunday, I'm looking like, okay, maybe I will have nothing to report. Anyways, let me go with my spiel real quick, and then we'll get into this. All right, so first of all, this is my opinion and my opinion only. Involved into this video. All the articles are linked down below, so if you're wondering if you want to read and get your own perspective of it versus my perspective, the links are down below, so that you can read them in entirety outside of my perspective and my interpretation of what I'm reading here. Also, like I said, if you give it a chance, and if you like what you see, give it a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed, please subscribe. That's very appreciative. All right, so enough of that. Let's get into it, right? I'm thinking what I want to do before I get into the article. I want to show you a video done by the Republican Governors Association in regards to the border crisis. And the reason I want to show you that, and people like, well, I'm not a Republican, or I'm not this, or I'm not that. It doesn't really matter, folks. It's still an issue at hand, and unfortunately, the big issue here at hand is that the current powers that be there in Washington are kind of, that the ones that are holding power, that control, the presidency and whatnot, are just kind of like not really paying attention to this situation. And I honestly feel it's Invasion USA, because like I said prior to this, I think we discussed this not too long ago, when they broke down the amount of people coming over the border freely, and Texas is, don't get me wrong, Texas is doing what they can. They're working on building their own wall. And funny enough, Governor Abbott called Biden's bluff and started shipping people to Washington today. I know some people thought it was, and it may be a publicity stunt. I don't know. I'm not in these folks' shoes. I'm just regurgitating what, the media or articles or what I see. So I'm not 100%. It could be a great publicity stunt. If not, it is what it is, folks. But I do want to show you some information, because we are so concerned about every other nation's border around the globe but our own. And we are being invaded, no matter how you look at it. And like I said, you can find this information online. If you know where to dig and you know how to look up stuff. Over 157 different countries. 157 different countries. Even Ukrainians are coming through the southern border. Afghans, Mexicans, Venezuelans, and the list goes on. They know that America is wide open and nothing is being done. And of course, you've heard of Title 42, that the Dems are not going to reinstate, and it's just going to let the flood come through. And it's funny because they always talk about the Charlie Victor situation, the health crisis, and we need to do this and we need to do that. And we're going to even touch on a couple of those things. But when it comes to the southern border of our great country, they are not. It doesn't matter. You don't have to get the victor. You don't have to do this. It just doesn't matter. Just come on over, do what you got to do. And it affects our economy, no matter how you look at this. Now, I believe in immigration. A lot of people have, America was built on immigrants. People coming over from Britain and Ireland and all the other different places. So legal keyword legal immigration makes sense. There's a process, and most, if not all, other countries have a format for people to immigrate from their country to from another country to their country. So doesn't that make sense? You have a process. You vet these folks. You check their background. Why are you here? What are you trying to do? And then you work with them. But you just don't open your borders and say, everybody come on in. We don't care where you're coming from. If you're part of a cartel, if you're part of this, if you're a trafficker, whatever the case may be, bring your drugs, bring your crime, bring all this stuff like that. It's getting really bad. Just look at Texas. Look at the statistics. Like we said, we went over this information. So all in all, before I get into the article of the Texas border, I want to show you a quick video done by the RGA, which is the Republican Governors Association. And that this kind of breaks it down, to be honest with you. So let's go ahead and run this real quick and throw it in and let it run. You know what I mean? I think it's like 50 seconds long. So let's get into it.
Southern border crisis.
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 Crisis at the border.
As many as 18,000 migrant arrivals a day in the ensuing weeks.
Record-breaking surge of migrants attempting to cross the U.S.-Mexico border this spring.
Biden administration is lifting Title 42 restrictions.
Is not sustainable.
Because they know these numbers are going to skyrocket. They're expecting 30 to 60,000 people in May alone.
Even single adults can cross the southern border.
Here comes another caravan.
Humanitarian crisis on steroids.
This is nothing new.
How many people are coming across undetected?
The Biden administration refuses to even pretend as though there's a crisis.
And this is the result of it. That is a border in chaos.
The time for action is right now.
Anyway, so there you have it. You know, they kind of put a little thing to clip together and kind of, you know, all the different things in the media and whatnot. Maybe some of you folks knew, didn't know. Some people don't watch TV anymore because it's just so full of propaganda and whatnot. And some people think, well, you are using their propaganda. No. This is facts. You can look at the facts. I've spoken to people in Texas. And matter of fact, we probably have people in chat right now that are in Texas that are probably closer to the border than we are and probably seen things firsthand. So it's just... It's incredible what's transpiring in this country, and what is this going to do down the road? You know what I mean? We only see it's like we hear a story, we look into it, and then some people, you know, file that and put it away. But what are the long-term effects of a situation like this? We're already, you know, having problems with our supply chain, our shelves. You know, people are having issues with their, you know, going to their grocery stores. Some not, some so. I'm still waiting on getting pictures and emails from you guys of your local stores and your local shopping experiences sent to me via email. We'll probably talk about that maybe on Thursday if I can get enough pictures. If not, I've got several others because I employ you, the viewer, to email me. And if you happen to go shopping and you see these holes in your grocery store or wherever that you happen to be, send them on to me and we're going to discuss those on Thursday because a lot of people don't believe in it. And sure, that's your choice. Your choice. You don't want to believe that there's a food shortage brewing, that inflation is where it's at. You don't want to believe that there's a supply chain issue or labor shortages and all the other things that are compounding a SHTF scenario coming down the pipe. That's your choice. You know what I mean? As the good book says, you know, you have the choice to choose, or you have the freedom to express your own opinions and views or whatnot. Anyways, and I'm just paraphrasing, not word for word. Anyway, so let me bring up the article real quick. Throw it up here on the screen there. There we go. And let's just dive into it real quick. And so, as you can see here, it says Texas under pressure to secure its own border against illegal immigration amid escalating crisis because the federal government is not really doing nothing to help the state of Texas. Now, the reason I want to bring up this article, because it's quite intriguing. It's quite intriguing to say the least because of our Constitution and Texas's Constitution. Anyways, it says, Del Rio, Texas. The border crisis has reached a point where growing chorus in Texas is pushing for the state to take matters into its own hands. Several state Republican lawmakers, bolstered by their U.S. congressional counterparts, argue that Texas needs to step up because the state is being invaded, orchestrated by the Mexican cartels, and the Constitution allows for defense. The decision rests on the governor, who would have to declare the crisis an invasion to invoke the state constitutional powers. Is Abbott going to do this? I'm not 100% sure. He has done a lot of things for the state of Texas. We'll see how this unfolds. eventually. Anyways, this is Article 4, Article 5, or yeah, I don't know. Section 4 of the U.S. Constitution, my apologies, states in part, the United States shall guarantee to every state in this union a republican form of government and shall protect each other from them of them against invasion. So basically, each the government's supposed to help protect us, each state from invasion from another country per se, aka Mexico, or other ones that are coming through that border. Anyways, Article 1, Section 10 of the U.S. Constitution states in part, no state shall, without the consent of Congress, engage in war unless actually invaded or in such imminent danger as they will not admit of delay. So basically, the sheer volume of illegal aliens and drugs coming across the border constitutes a cartel-style invasion, according to 5 Texas state representatives and 5 congressmen who recently visited the southern border in Del Rio, Texas. Combined with federal inaction, it's enough to trigger the state action, they argue. So basically, they're trying to figure out, does the state have the power? Are they being invaded? And from my perspective, I honestly feel that they should. And the fact that the cartels are part of it, and we've seen the cartel firing at U.S. border guards, firing at why is my mind going blank? Probably because the camera's focusing on me. National Guard. There you go. Sorry, my apologies. National Guard, and to me, you're firing across one border to another border at U.S. citizens, be it National Guard or Border Patrol. That's an escalation. And the amount of volume of people coming over, and then also the amount of drugs, human trafficking, the cartels and the violence and everything associated with it, that's going to be plaguing those areas, and as they push up to the United States and where they finally settle up to, because these people are undocumented. They have no clue. Our federal government feels it's smart to give them a cell phone, which I thought was kind of funny. Here's a cell phone. We'll call you when your court date's going to be, and just please show up. You know what I mean? And we'll go there and whatnot. Folks, most of those people are going to get lost in the system. They're going to just disappear. They're going to be absorbed into wherever they're at and fly under the radar until they commit some sort of heinous crime, like we've seen in the news, where people. Now, what was it? It was a Somalian. Someone. There was a news article. I wish I had it here in front of me. That a Somalian had beat his wife and children. I forget with what weapon. It wasn't like, it was just something that he beat them with. And when he was arrested, he said, "I didn't know I couldn't do that," because they didn't have that process, or he didn't have that process of, this is the United States, these are our laws, and this is the process of becoming a citizen in this country, and so on and so forth. So he had no clue, because he was an undocumented border crosser, or migrant, or I don't know, whatever, all the different terms they like to use. Anyways, so it's a huge issue, and I think we need to focus on that, because down the road, it's going to create a nasty situation. At least from my perspective, that's how I feel. So let's talk about something that's truly worrisome to me. And if you have children, this should really concern you as well. This is from Walgreens, one of the largest drugstores in the United States. Not the one. There's several others. You got Rite Aid and Eckerd's and whatever other drugstores are around the globe, anyways, or in the U.S. Excuse me. But let's bring this article up. And like I said, this is truly a situation, especially for people with infants. It says, mother of infants are the latest group of consumers to feel the pinch of supply chain issues as major drugstore chain announces it will ration. It starts there. It will ration baby formula. Just imagine this. If you just don't have for your child, if you don't have for your infant, and, people think, well, in this article, it says that they can have 3 cans. That should be more than enough for them. Who are you to make that decision? Who are you to tell that person that this is enough for their child? Maybe they have 5 children. Maybe they have a dozen. I don't know. Maybe who knows what their scenario is, and who knows? The individual making that statement might not be in their shoes. So you can never say that they can pick up 3 of them. You know what I mean? We're not here to judge people. And that's when it comes to prepping, to be honest with you. If I want to store food for the security of my family, Don't judge me. Don't call me a hoarder. Don't say these things. Keep your opinions to yourself because no one cares. If you don't want to prepare, that's your call. If I want to prepare and have a few extra cans of food just in case something goes sideways, that's my choice. And me as an American, I have that choice. Anyways, back into the article before I go on some random tangent as usual, right? Anyways, this is Walgreens, the nation's second largest pharmacy. There we go. With over 9,000 locations, is taking an extreme step of limiting purchases of formula, according to the company. A Walgreens spokesman confirmed they were limiting formula purchases, to 3 per customer, telling CBS Money Watch it's due to increased demand and various supplier issues. Anyways, I was looking at something here. I should have removed that out of there. But anyways, it says, as of last month, 29% of the most popular baby formula products were out of stock across the country. 29%. That is a big number. According to a data assembly, which tracked the supplier at over 11,000 stores, the number has increased by 17% since November. So how do we know it's not going to compound the situation? How do we know it's not going to, it says it has increased by 17%. How do we know in the next few months it won't increase by 20%, 30%? And you kind of see where I'm going with this and the direction it may get going. Anyways, quite concerning. Back to the article. It says, this is a shocking number that you don't see for other categories. Ben Rich, CEO of Data Assembly, told CBS Money Watch, we've been tracking it over time and it's going up dramatically. We see the category is being affected by economic conditions more dramatically than others. So, folks, if you have children, if you have infants that rely on formula, if you don't have the capability to, breastfeed or whatnot, I have no idea what's going on with my throat. It's whenever I turn on the camera. Anyways, I implore you, if you have the opportunity to, make sure that you have that for your children. I'm not saying go out and buy everything you see. But you know what your child consumes. You know what you need. And if it happens to get worse or get bad, you might want to look at other alternatives. Me being, I'm not sure what other alternatives to be. I should do some research and follow up with that. But hopefully someone who does have infants and that's in a emergency preparedness mindset, that they themselves have already thought this through and have already put up formula and whatnot. And there's various different variations of formula, the powdered form and the liquid form and stuff like that. Find out which, and I'm not 100% sure, but which has the longest shelf stability on it, how to store it properly, and things like that. And I'm sure some of you folks know out there. Anyways, just wanted to bring that to folks' attention in regards to that formula, because when I saw that, I was like, man, that's a scary thought. I remember when my children, I had 3 boys, and they were all about a year apart. And I remember how much formula I was going through, and I'm like, they can consume depending on your child. So every child has different, requirements per se, right? Anyways, also, we're approaching summer. So a lot of people are not thinking about this right now. We're approaching summer. No one's really, and some folks are. Some folks are still in winter. Some folks are still in, freezing temperatures. But we're moving into the spring and moving into the summer time frame of things. So this is going to fall to the wayside. My concern here is with this article is that come winter, what are we going to hear? What's going to be our crop production? What are the final tallies going to be for crop production? What are, with all these sanctions and everything else going on in the world and energy costs going up, as well as inflation skyrocketing, and we're going to touch on that as well, is what should you see come next winter? To me, if you have the opportunity to buy things that heat your home or stockpile wood or whatever that you use to heat your home, might be a term to get it during the summertime and prepare heavily for this winter. Anyways, let's throw this up. It says, global energy tensions hits home as heating oil prices goes through the roof. That is of right now in April. Again, what will we see this coming winter? It says, with inflation, everything is looking up except the amount of money in your wallet. Makes sense, right? The cost of food, gas at the pump, goods and services are all up noticeably. And although the demand is lowering as the U.S. heating season ends, the cost of home heating oil is still on the rise. A standard home heating oil tank is set 275 gallons in March of 2021. The price of U.S. heating oil averaged $2.85 a gallon, and it'll cost $790 to fill a standard tank. Anyways, by March 28th, 2022, literally a year later, it has climbed to $5.12 per gallon. If I do my math right, it's 3, 4, 5. It's almost. It's not. Yeah, it is. No, is it 2, 4? Maybe 16. I don't know. It's almost doubled. Not there yet, but it's almost doubled per gallon. And now the cost of filling that tank is $1,410 to fill the same tank. That is a $620 more than a year ago, according to the numbers from the U.S. Energy Information Administration. So, with inflation being what it is, and your dollar not as buying as much as it used to be, and the price of this going up, what are we going to see this winter, folks? You know, me personally here in Florida, regardless, I do stock certain things like kerosene and lamp oil and other various things like that, because you never know. Look what happened to Texas. Maybe something crazy will happen and the world goes insane, which it's been doing with the weather patterns and whatnot. But we get a nasty freeze here. The power goes out and, it's cold. And I want to make sure that my family has the capability to heat themselves, even though I'm in Florida. But it's a lot detrimental to the folks like in Wisconsin, North Dakota, all the northern regions, New York, Michigan, and all those places like that, where it gets bone-chilling cold. And that cold will push through their homes. And then, again, I want to refer to Texas, where children lost their lives. People lost their lives because they were unprepared. So having things like this on hand and ready for something like this to transpire is huge. Matter of fact, I'm going to do a video this week specifically on oil. That's a good idea. Anyways, folks, something to pay attention to and something to prepare for now. Not 6 months from now when the cost is probably going to even go up even higher. Now is the time to prepare for this coming winter. I know some of you guys are still in winter, but now is the time to get what you need and start preparing for this coming winter of 2022 and moving into 2023. Things are just not getting any better, and I just don't see it. I don't see any alleviation of anything transpiring down the road. All right, so let me see here. There's a couple things overseas that I want to talk about. Let's before we go overseas, I want to bring up a quick article since we're discussing inflation in general. This was my zero hedge. Let me throw it up on the screen here, and it says the true inflation rate is 13.2%. Censorship resistant price tracker built on blockchain, and then this goes into crypto and some other things like that. I'll have this article linked down below. But it says with the official inflation CPI rate at 7.9% year over year, a 40-year high, which we've heard, one could be forgiven by delivering that the government statistics are to be trusted at this time, or why would they have allowed it to reach such a high level? Basically, in the article, it's stating that all the numbers that we've heard over the year or two is that all the numbers that we always hear in mainstream media are usually not factual. And then when you factor in the true factor of inflation, we're at 13.2% and climbing. Scary fact. And then you've heard things like the Fed's talking about raising interest rates. People are going to be priced out of being able to purchase a home. The loans will just be too high. And some people think, well, if my interest rate goes up from like 2.4% to like 3.8%, and they're like, well, that doesn't sound like much. It's huge, folks. That is $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 more in interest that you'll pay on a home versus what you could have got it for, let's say, last year. And time over time, as these things compound, it creates more of an issue because you're paying so much more and you're losing that in your equity and a bunch of other stuff like that. And I'm no financial advisor by far, but I look at numbers. And, people look at some of these numbers, I'm like, they don't feel like it's a small number. And, but when you look at the numbers and you add that few percent and you compound that by, let's say you paid $250,000, $300,000 for the house, and you look at the interest ratio per year, year over year, it's a lot of money. Inflation is huge. And people don't understand that sometimes. And I have all these conversations with people with regards to inflation, and they're like, well, we're not getting taxed more, we're in a different tax bracket, but inflation is a form of tax. No matter how you look at it on the US dollar, your dollar is worth less. You're paying more for things, like you're paying more for gas, and then you compound that with inflation. It's just ridiculous when you run the true numbers. The numbers that most of the time the media doesn't want to show you, or the government doesn't want to speak about, because it will set people into panic mode, which eventually it's going to come out. And you want to be prepared as best as you can be, you, your family, whoever it may be, because you don't want to be a part of that mass chaos that will ensue once the generalized public picks up on what's transpiring. Now, don't get me wrong, there's going to be a lot of people out there that are still, so right up to when the balloon goes up or something transpires, they're going to still be lost. They're still not going to have any idea what's going on in the world, because they're so focused on Will Smith. They're so focused on, look at this football game or UFC or and I don't mean to pick on sports, it's a nice American pastime, but they're going to be so focused on other things that when the time comes, they're going to be in a pinch. They're going to be in a really bad situation. And what do you think is going to happen with that situation? Again, imagine this person has 3 kids and a wife, and they get into this situation where all of a sudden they realize they don't have enough food to sustain themselves, or they don't have access to this food because of inflation or supply chain issues or food shortages. And they look over at their children and they see their children suffering. They see their loved ones suffering. What are you think these folks are going to do? Regardless of how wholesome this person may be, they're going to step out of the realm of being comfortable with the life that they live and do things that you normally would not do. And as you see, crime statistics all over the globe, from the rural areas to the major metropolitan areas, are starting to skyrocket because people are feeling the crunch. All right, so let's move into a couple things. China is going through this huge health crisis. The Charlie Victor is affecting them heavily, from what we understand. There's been some whistleblowers. There's been some, videos leaked, and people like, well, here in the U.S. we're beyond that. You know what I mean? It's not gonna happen here in the U.S. And it's funny because I'm assuming a lot of those same folks thought there would have never been a health crisis to the extent that was on our doors just a couple of years ago, and that they were going to see lockdowns and mandates and all these regulatory things that came, that took over their state, let's say like Michigan, California, and the list goes on. But all the shutdowns, and we still haven't even recovered from half this stuff. Well, and as you guys recently seen, good old Fauci came on the news. He's been making his headways through certain news media outlets, saying that it's not over till it's over. And I don't know, I'm just looking at my shirt. I don't know, whatever. I don't have one of those lint rollers. My wife tells me I should get one. Sorry, a little ramble there. Anyways, where was I? In regards to that, he's saying that, if the BA.2 or whatever, the new variant, the subvariant of the Big O, spikes numbers coming this fall, most likely they would probably push it until they'll push it until right after the primaries, because they're at risk for losing the House, possibly the Senate. Who knows? I'm very curious to see how the primaries play out. But anyways, there's already places starting to get involved and pushing this forward. So let's lose, and this is really horrible to hear. Let's bring up Massachusetts for a second. So let's bring up that article. It says Massachusetts state troopers fired for not complying with the Victor mandate. A dozen Massachusetts state troopers were fired on April 8th for refusing to comply with the state's Charlie Victor mandate, despite cases and hospitalizations drastically dropping across the state in recent months. A spokesman for the Massachusetts State Police told local media that 11 troopers and 1 sergeant was fired for not complying with the Governor Charlie Baker's mandate. They were let go after internal hearings process, said state police spokesman David, I don't even know what is this, whatever. His name is David and he works for them. Anyways, so they fired law enforcement officers. Look what law enforcement officers kind of went through that whole process over the last year or so, when we've seen all the riots and the, defund the police and all those other things that were transpiring. So now this is happening because they chose not to get the victor, and that's their choice. At least I feel it's their choice, not some mandate. Now these folks have lost their job, which to me creates, some people are like, well, it's only 11. It's only 11. Where else is it going to go? How many more officers have they lost already over the last year or so? This creates a position that the citizens of that area may have, the crime rate may go up because there's not enough law enforcement officers to cover those regions or that specific county or city or whatnot. So do you see how this progresses into a situation down the road? Like people they hear this and they're like, and they just kind of swipe it away, and then they wonder why a year later, like, man, why did my car get broken into 17 times? Why did the store down the street get burned up and robbed? Why are the murder rates going up? It's because there's no law and order in their area, because they have lost so many people in their police departments, be it state, local, city, and whatnot. You know what I mean? It's just something to pay attention to. And that being said, let's go over, and universities. Universities are the worst, man. Universities have like some of the worst politics in there, and I don't know. Anyways, let's bring it up, man. Hopefully, and universities, to me, at this point, universities in America is a massive indoctrination machine, and it sucks because, people want a higher education, people want to learn something. Let's say they want to become a doctor, they want to be a physicist or whatever, some sort of higher learning aspect. In the process, they're being indoctrinated by all the rhetoric and stuff like that that's being pushed on them in these universities. Anyways, let's dive into this. This is Charlie Victor mask mandates brought back in 3 universities. So there's a start. We haven't even hit anything yet because, as you guys have been watching, numbers are low. It says 3 U.S. universities have announced a reinstatement of masks on campus, citing increasing Charlie Victor cases among students. At Georgetown University in Washington, D.C., go figure, an indoor mask requirement began on April 7th and is applicable on the main and medical center campuses. The decision was taken after undergraduate students exhibited higher rates of infection. The rules apply in all circumstances except when the students are at private office or personal residence or eating and drinking. So let's say they're in the cafeteria, right? Let's say they're in a cafeteria and there's, 500, 1,000, depending on the size of the campus, and they're eating and drinking, right? So then you can take it off. I'm pausing there because does that make sense? You're saying that when you're in this classroom with, let's say, 30 to 100 people, you got to have it on. But when you're drinking and conversating and laughing and yelling and, whatever you want to call it, take it off. You're good. So it just doesn't, they talk about the science all the time. And I'm just like, how does that make sense? How does that make sense? It does, to me, it just blows my mind. But maybe I'm just an idiot. I don't know. Anyways, this increase is partly due to the impact of the BA.2, which I just discussed from the Big O subvariant. BA.2 is now the dominant strain in the United States, including in D.C. and and on our campuses. Excuse me. While recent studies show that the BA.2 does not cause more severe illness than the initial Big O variant, they also show that the BA.2 is even more transmissible, the university said in a notice. So you have kids going off to college because, you want them to have a wonderful future. You want them to get a great job. You want them to be successful in what they're doing. And in the process, this is transpiring in some of these places. And some of you have great, there's luckily there's students out there or people at that young age that are smarter than the average bear and don't believe the hype. They don't fall for the crap. They don't listen to the additional curriculum positioned in their college, and they kind of put that to the wayside and focus on what's most important, which is their education, on what they're trying to get and the degree that they're looking for. Hopefully most of us in the emergency preparedness have talked to our kids and explained to them what's transpiring in these places, and give them at least a heads up of what's going on in the universities, the indoctrination centers per se, right? We've already seen what's happening in public schools, and that's just insane. Anyways, real quick, before we get into China, because I have some interesting things in China, and I want you to pay attention to the way China does some of this stuff. But let me bring up this thing over in the EU. This was posted over in the EU because a lot of us have been talking about, nuclear detonation and nuclear war, what, all the things that you need for nuclear to survive that type of situation. You know what I mean? Specifically potassium iodide tablets. Listen to this. So as you can see here, it says to improve the EU's preparedness in response to public health risks such as chemical, biological, radiological, and nuclear (CBRN) threats, the Commission is building up a strategic reserve of response capacities through the EU Civil Protection Mechanism. This includes 540.5 million, and that's pounds, and rescue strategic stockpile established in close collaboration with the Health Emergency Preparedness and Response Authority. The stockpile will consist of equipment and medicines, vectors, and other therapeutics to treat patients exposed to CBRN emergencies agents, as well as of the rescue decontamination reserve to provide Wow, do they got to do this to me? Reserve to provide decontamination equipment and expert response teams. I don't know. They just wanted to throw that decontamination in there a couple of times, and it kind of almost got me tongue twisted. Anyways, as an immediate first step, the EU has mobilized its rescue medical reserve to procure potassium iodide tablets which can be used to protect people from the harmful effects of radiation. So folks who always ask, does this work? Here we have a country stockpiling it. It says already almost 3 million iodide tablets have been delivered to Ukraine via the EU Civil Protection Mechanism with the help of France and Spain. So this is why we're seeing a increased cost in potassium iodide tablets, as well as the shortage of it. You know what I mean? Sometimes you can't find it. You know what I mean? Especially in your local areas and whatnot, because there's people out there that are concerned. I've had this stuff for years, and I always grab one whenever I see one, especially if it's on a good deal. But this is just the start of another situation that's going to exacerbate the supply of potassium iodide tablets as these countries, like let's say Poland, Norway, Sweden, all those bordering, states in the EU and Spain, and the list goes on. They're going to start stockpiling and purchasing a bulk of this, which is going to dwindle the supply that's available to the public. Anyway, something I just wanted to throw up there in case some of you folks have been looking. Now, here we go into the whole China situation. Now, before I get into the actual whole Charlie Victor situation in China, I wanted to throw up this little blurb that I caught the other day. I'll throw it up on the screen real quick. It says, China has accelerated an expansion of its nuclear arsenal because of a change in its assessment of the threat posed by the U.S. People with knowledge of the Chinese leadership say, does that even make sense? I'm going to read this word for word. It says, I'm going to start over because this doesn't, tell me if this makes sense to you. I don't know. I'm not an editor-in-chief in some of these newspapers. It says, China has accelerated an expansion of its nuclear arsenal because of change in its assessment of threat posed by the U.S. That makes sense. People with knowledge of the Chinese leadership thinking say, shedding new light on a buildup that is raising tensions between the two countries. Sorry, that little thinking say, I don't get that. Maybe it's just proper English and I'm just, like I said, not the smartest one in the tool shed. Anyways, so China plans on expanding its nuclear arsenal and building it up a lot more. So that we already have Russia as a threat with a nuclear arsenal. Speaking of which, Iran just told the news agencies that, hey, we are, I think, what did they say? 60% purity levels for their enrichment program, their nuclear enrichment. Very, very close to weapons grade. But they're saying, hey, we're only doing this because we're doing it for energy. Sure, that's the case. Sure. Anyways, now you have Iran, North Korea, China, Russia. Everybody is getting on the nuclear race to have as many as possible nuclear weapons as they possibly can. Reminds me of back in the 80s and further than that, back in the 50s and so on and so forth, this whole nuclear arms race and everything that we've seen in the past. Here we are again. Anyways, Shanghai, China. And here's why, again, while I'm focusing on China, is because China is a huge situation for us because I say, I'm not 100%, but I say 80%, a lot of our goods and materials and things come from China. We're already being strained by the whole Russian-Ukraine system with wheat and fuel and things like that. Now, China makes everything else. They produce so much. And I like the way this article was broken down. And I also want to follow up with a different article in regards to that. But first, let me show you a couple clips, so I don't have to, you guys I want to show you a couple clips here. This is how, just imagine if you're living in China. Just imagine if this happens here, or the way that they're trying to control the situation in China. These are some of the videos that I've seen. But take a look at this real quick clip right here. And it's, so you have these guys in these suits strapped up with their, it looks like, I don't know, is it an AK-47? Is it, whatever weapons that the Chinese government has for that. So you have guys, you have folks in these, and I say guys and gals in these suits, strapped up, making sure that everybody follows the rules there. Also, let me see where else I got. And check a look at this one. This one's quite interesting as well. This one was leaked. I think, I don't even know what platform. This is what happens when you don't follow the rules. So there's a gentleman there. He's not happy what's transpiring. The guy in the little outfit says, "Okay, sure, that's what you want to do." And then he brings him down. And yeah, there we go. That's what happens when you don't follow the rules in China. And to me, that's just the tip of the iceberg. Just the tip of the iceberg. I can only imagine down the road what further played out. Anyways, also, like I said, we're going to be talking about the food shortages. Believe it or not, there are food looting, and I don't want to say riots, because I don't see any people doing anything like, well, they are being destructive, but, not what I consider a riot. Maybe it is. But take a look at this thing here, where people are just trying to grab food. They're throwing food. They're hitting stores. It's a huge looting situation, because there's videos out there of residents in certain parts of China that are saying that they're being starved to death. So they're resorting to looting and whatnot. Or maybe it is a riot. I don't know. But you get what I'm saying. They're looting stores and whatnot. Anyways, I'm going to show you two other clips, but let's go into the article first. It says, Shanghai residents protest food shortages during Charlie Victor lockdown, which you just saw. When the people start to bang their pots and scream, "We want supplies," you know it's not the Shanghai you used to know. Anyways, desperate Shanghai residents who are under strict lockdown over the Charlie Victor outbreak are protesting food shortages, chanting, "We want supplies," from their apartments, the video shows. I looked for the video and could not find it because it was removed off Twitter. Footage posted to Twitter showed people in the lockdown city banging pots on their balconies to decry the lack of food and other items. France 24 reported, "We want supplies," the quarantine residents reportedly chanted. In another video posted to the Chinese social media platform Weibo, a drone appears to warn residents to cease protesting. So they're using drones, and I got two great clips because they're using two types of, they're using a regular drone, and then they're using robotic dogs. Yes, I said robotic dogs. And it says, "Please comply with the Charlie Victor restrictions. Control your soul's desire for freedom. Do not open the window or sing." Man. So this is, and I'm gonna play the audio to this on both of them. This is the drone that's flying over the city at night. Let me throw that up on the screen. And they're crazy, to say the least. Now check this out. This is a robotic dog doing the same thing that the drone was doing. Crazy stuff, folks. Crazy stuff. It almost, doesn't it resemble some sort of futuristic, apocalyptic kind of like scenario? You got drones, preaching. You got these robotic dogs in the streets. And then, it's just, man, pretty crazy stuff, to say the least. Now, someone brought up a good thing. Someone asked, is it real? Is what's happening in China real? I'm assuming there is some sort of situation brewing there. But people have asked, and I've even come up with this a while back, and I was thinking, do you think that this is a way that China could technically put a strain on the U.S. supply chain on goods and whatnot in a show of solidarity with the Russians, but not making it look like they're doing that? And I was thinking, that could be a possibility. They could be shutting down the ports. And people are like, well, they're losing 29, I forget, the article will say how much money that they're losing when they shut down these ports. But what effects does it have on the U.S. economy? The U.S. economy is already facing supply shortages. The U.S. economy is already looking at mass inflation. So will this push and exacerbate the U.S. situation? And is China willing to take a hit? Because China is also making deals with Africa, India, and many other countries, Russia included. So they have money coming in from other sources, to say the least. But anyways, let's throw up the article real quick. Quite intriguing. I'm glad some outside of I'm thinking I'm conspiratorial, so I don't really discuss it other than with friends and family and whatnot. But here it is. It says China's lockdowns may be partly a ploy to tamper with supply chains, highlight U.S. dependence, expert says. So the extremely strict lockdown that Beijing officials have imposed on Shanghai, and this is dated April 10th, updated on April 10th. It was posted on April 9th and updated April 10th. So right on the money. Anyways, it says have imposed on Shanghai and other cities in recent weeks may be aimed at sending a message to the United States and its aligned powers about their dependence on Chinese supply chains, said Brian McCarthy, chief strategist at the investment firm Macro Lens LLC. So this is a two-phase lockdown in Shanghai, began to take effect on March 28th, and yet has yet to be lifted. Chinese officials implemented in defiance of projections that it would cost China's economy $29 billion. So they're willing to take a $29 billion hit if this is the case in 2 weeks alone. But the cost to the United States and aligned nations may be even greater in McCarthy's view. Speaking to the Epoch Times TV, China's Insider Program on April 4th, McCarthy said that disruptions of global supply chains are particularly problematic and make U.S. weakness all the more evident at the time when inflation has been surging. McCarthy suggested that the Chinese officials are fully aware of America's economic woes and have chosen this juncture to illustrate the vulnerabilities of the U.S. economy. We really are ill-equipped to deal with any further supply chain disruptions, so they really have us in a pickle, especially with the Charlie Victor, McCarthy said. So could China be using what's going on there to affect the United States? It could be a possibility, and I'm glad that someone had brought it to light, because this is something I was pondering a couple of weeks ago when I saw, Shenzhen close down its area, and even my place of business has it affected on certain things, and I've talked to other people where they're starting to see other issues get compounded by what's happening in China. And this is why we have to be informed and educated on things that overseas, because the trickle effect, or the domino effect, as some people like to say, it slowly works itself into the West, or AKA the United States, because we're so dependent on other countries. Just like with the whole Russian situation and the Ukrainian situation, we were dependent on Russian oil. Not that we needed to be, but we were dependent on their stuff, and also some of their metals, like the whole aluminum situation, where you've probably seen a lot of shortages in certain types of cans and the cost of canned goods going up. And then now we have China with their situation. So you have Russia and China, two major powerhouses when it comes to, exports in regards to what other people need. You've seen things happening in Germany, and what is it? I think there's going to be rationing of something. I think I don't know if it's France. It's somewhere there's going to be a rationing of fuel, not gas, but like some sort of energy thing. I can't remember exactly, so I don't want to say it. But anyways, that being said, it's going to show how dependent other countries are on these communist regimes. Kind of crazy, right? We're always about democracy and freedom and stuff like that, but so many countries depend on these communist countries for their slave labor because it's so cheap, because of the way they run their countries, not caring about how this affects the civilians or the citizens that live in these countries that get paid pennies on the dollar, if anything at all, to produce the goods for other countries, aka democratic countries. It's just And no one ever looks at it that way. No one ever looks at it. No one, evidently, the powers that be don't care about the people of China. They don't care about the people of Russia. They don't care about all this other stuff like that. They say they do, but honestly, you know, just like Nike and some of these major organizations that have their places over there, do they truly care about what's the people that are getting paid nothing, if anything, at all, to make their shoes? So they can come over here to the U.S. and sell them for $120 a pair when they probably paid, you know, $1 a pair, just to rape the profits and run from there. You know what I mean? It's just ridiculous, folks. Anyways, that wraps up the Sunday Shift Report here today on this Sunday afternoon. Sorry, it went a bit long. I do apologize for that, but thank you all who's tuned in, who stayed tuned in. Truly appreciate anybody else who came in the middle of this. If you get to watch a replay, truly appreciate that. Don't forget to hit that thumbs up. It's always beneficial to the channel. I know I repeat myself saying that, but it is. It helps the channel. It helps the videos make its presence on YouTube. Other than that, I'm going to try to wrap this up real quick. Thank you all for being here. Mods, thank you for being here as well. You are the glue that holds this all together. And please, everybody stay safe out there. Stay prepped. God bless. And this is GreyMan, and I'm out. I'll see you guys on the rebound.